What if the greatest monsters in the galaxy were not aliens, but humans? The Galactic Alliance believed they had finally won. After centuries of brutal war, endless battles, and the loss of thousands of worlds, they had done the impossible. They had captured the species every civilization feared: humanity. Across the stars, people celebrated. Massive fleets fired victory salutes into space. Politicians called it the beginning of a new era. Historians announced that the Age of Fear had finally ended. The humans had been imprisoned inside the strongest military fortress ever built. It was called Black Vault. The station floated in empty space, far away from trade routes, colonies, and civilian systems. It had no windows. No weak points. Every wall was made from layers of neutron steel, reinforced by powerful energy shields. Thousands of automated defense cannons watched every direction. Nothing had ever escaped Black Vault. And nothing ever would. Or so everyone believed. Inside the prison, silence ruled every corridor. No shouting. No fighting. No begging. Only hundreds of human soldiers sitting quietly inside reinforced cells. The guards found it strange. Most prisoners screamed. Humans simply waited. Commander Varek stood on the central observation deck, watching the security feeds. "They've accepted defeat," one officer said proudly. Varek didn't answer immediately. He had fought humans for almost 20 years. He had seen entire battle fleets disappear because one human captain refused to surrender. He had watched soldiers keep fighting long after losing communication, supplies, and even hope. Humans didn't give up. Not like this. "They're too calm," Varek finally said. The officer laughed. "They're trapped. What else can they do?" Varek kept staring at the monitors. Every human looked relaxed. Some played cards. Some exercised inside tiny cells. Others simply smiled. That smile bothered him more than anything. Far below the prison decks, inside cell block 7, Captain Daniel Hayes leaned against the cold metal wall. Across from him sat Sergeant Brooks. "You think they'll ever realize?" Brooks asked quietly. Hayes smiled. "They'll figure it out." "When?" "When it's already too late." Neither man looked worried. Neither expected rescue. Because rescue had never been the plan. Several systems away, deep inside Alliance space, scientists celebrated another successful security test. The prison's shields worked perfectly. Its communication jammers blocked every signal. Nothing could get in. Nothing could get out. The station was considered absolutely secure. But they had misunderstood one important fact about humans. Humans never depended on perfect plans. They depended on backup plans. And backup plans for backup plans. While the Alliance celebrated, tiny events began happening across the galaxy. A mining colony reported missing supplies. An abandoned listening station suddenly came online for exactly 3 seconds. A cargo ship changed its flight path without explanation. Each event looked meaningless. No one connected them together. No alarms were raised. No investigations were ordered. Because every piece seemed too small to matter. Back inside Black Vault, Varek walked through the detention levels with 12 heavily armed guards. Every human prisoner stood as he passed. Not because they feared him. Almost as if they were greeting an old friend. Hayes stepped toward the transparent barrier of his cell. "Beautiful station," he said. Varek ignored him. Hayes continued anyway. "You built it well." Silence. "You should be proud." Still no answer. Then Hayes asked a single question. "Tell me, who designed your emergency response system?" Varek stopped walking. "What?" Hayes smiled. "I was just curious." Varek studied his face. There was no panic. No desperation. Only confidence. The commander turned and continued walking. But for the first time since the prison opened, He felt uneasy. Hours later, an emergency alert echoed across the command center. Unknown vessel detected. Operators rushed to their stations. One ship. Small. Old. Unarmed. It drifted toward the outer defense line without responding to warnings. Destroy it, an officer ordered. Before the defense cannons could fire, the ship exploded by itself. No weapons. No attack. Just a silent flash. The explosion barely scratched the station. Everyone relaxed. False alarm. Or so they thought. Deep inside the station, hidden behind layers of armored walls, one sensor blinked. Then another. Then another. For less than 1 second. Captain Hayes looked toward the ceiling. "They're here," he whispered. Brooks slowly stood beside him. Across every human cell, prisoners exchanged quiet smiles. The countdown had begun. And the galaxy still believed humanity was trapped. It had no idea. The prison had never been built to keep humans inside. It had become the perfect place to unleash them. The explosion outside Black Vault lasted less than a second. Every officer in the command center relaxed. It was just an abandoned freighter, one technician reported. No weapons. No survivors. Commander Varric narrowed his eyes. "Run a full diagnostic." The technician hesitated. "Sir, there doesn't appear to be any damage." "I didn't ask what you think." "Run it." The room fell silent as thousands of scanners swept through the massive prison. Everything looked normal. Power systems, stable. Shield generators, online. Weapon platforms, operational. Communication arrays, functioning perfectly. The chief engineer smiled. "See? Nothing happened." Varric didn't smile. He had learned something after years of fighting humans. Whenever everything looked perfect, something was usually very wrong. Deep inside cell block 7, Captain Daniel Hayes sat perfectly still. He wasn't looking at the walls. He wasn't watching the guards. He was counting. 8. 9. 10. A tiny vibration passed through the floor. Almost impossible to notice. But every human prisoner noticed it. Brooks looked up. "The relay?" Hayes nodded once. "They found it. 30 years earlier. Long before the war reached its final stages. Human engineers had secretly launched hundreds of microscopic communication beacons into deep space. They weren't satellites. They weren't weapons. They were seeds. Each one drifted silently through the galaxy, powered by miniature fusion cells designed to survive for centuries. Most civilizations never detected them. The few that did dismissed them as harmless debris. That mistake would soon cost them everything. Because every beacon was waiting for only one thing. A single coded signal. Back in the present. Far beyond Alliance territory. An old cargo vessel floated between dead asteroids. Its hull looked damaged. Its engines barely worked. Anyone scanning it would think it had been abandoned years ago. Inside, only 4 humans remained. No uniforms. No military insignia. Just ordinary mechanics. At least. That was the disguise. One woman stared at an ancient communication screen. A single light suddenly turned green. She smiled. "There it is." The oldest man in the room stood immediately. "Confirm the code." She checked it 3 times. No mistake. He took a deep breath. "Wake everyone." Within seconds, the quiet cargo ship transformed. Hidden walls opened. Advanced computers powered on. Encrypted transmitters unfolded from beneath the hull. The rusty freighter had never been a cargo ship. It had been sleeping. Waiting. Watching. For 23 years. Across the galaxy. The same thing happened. A forgotten weather station suddenly activated. An old mining platform changed direction. Several abandoned satellites woke from decades of silence. Hundreds. Then thousands. Then tens of thousands. One by one. Human sleeper assets came alive. None of them transmitted long messages. Only 4 words. The cage is closed. To everyone else, the message meant nothing. To humanity, it meant everything. Phase 1. Complete. Inside Black Vault, strange reports started arriving. Commander, we're receiving unusual interference. Source? We can't find one. Another officer looked confused. Our long-range sensors just lost calibration. A third interrupted. Navigation buoys near Sector 9 have gone offline. The command center became increasingly busy. Each problem looked small. Each problem seemed unrelated. No one realized they were all connected. Except Varek. He slowly looked toward the prison decks. The humans. One officer laughed. They're locked in cells. I know. So what could they possibly be doing? Varek answered quietly. I don't know. And that's exactly what worries me. Meanwhile, Captain Hayes finally stood. Every nearby prisoner also rose. No one spoke. No one moved unnecessarily. Even the guards noticed the change. One young guard tightened his grip on his rifle. Why are they standing? His partner shrugged. I don't know. Hayes looked directly at them. Then he smiled. Not with hatred. Not with anger. With certainty. You should leave, he said calmly. The guards laughed. Leave? You're the prisoners. Hayes slowly shook his head. No. He looked around the massive prison. You are. Thousands of light years away. Hidden beneath the frozen surface of a dead moon. Massive steel doors began opening for the first time in decades. Dust fell from gigantic machines. Underground lights switched on. Artificial intelligence systems awakened. One cold mechanical voice echoed through the silent bunker. Emergency Protocol Atlas acknowledged. Human Command Authority verified. Reserve Fleet activation authorized. Deep beneath the ice. The first battleship's engines came to life. Then another. Then another. Soon. An entire hidden fleet was waking from its long sleep. The Alliance believed it had imprisoned humanity's army. They had no idea. They had captured only the soldiers who wanted to be captured. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity's real strength was finally waking up. No alarms warned the guards. No explosions shook the station. Yet something inside Black Vault had changed. Commander Varek could feel it. The prison no longer felt like a place under his control. It felt like a trap. The command center suddenly erupted with new warnings. Commander, our internal sensors are malfunctioning. Security cameras are losing connection. Backup systems aren't responding. Varek rushed to the central display. Entire sections of the prison were blinking yellow. Not destroyed. Disconnected. What's causing this? He demanded. The chief engineer's hands flew across the controls. I don't know. Our hardware is intact. Our software isn't damaged. It almost looks like. He stopped. Like what? The engineer swallowed. It's as if someone is giving our systems orders from inside. Varek's blood ran cold. That's impossible. Down in cell block 7. Every light flickered once. Then the emergency lights switched on. The corridors turned dark red. The prison suddenly became silent. No ventilation. No machinery. Only the sound of distant warning sirens. The young guard stepped backward. What just happened? His partner tried contacting command. Nothing. No signal. Captain Hayes slowly looked up. Right on time. Far beneath Black Vault. Hidden behind walls no Alliance engineer had ever inspected. A tiny machine no larger than a human hand came to life. It had been sleeping inside the station since construction began. Years ago. Human agents working as civilian contractors had secretly placed dozens of these devices throughout the fortress. Each one remained completely inactive. Invisible. Patient. Waiting for one coded command. That command had finally arrived. The small machine extended thin mechanical arms. It connected itself directly into the station's maintenance network. One command spread across the entire fortress. Override accepted. Doors unlocked. Security permissions changed. Power rerouted. Camera feeds looped themselves. No viruses. No hacking. Just hidden access codes written years before the station was even finished. Humanity hadn't broken into Black Vault. They had helped build it. Commander Varric stared in disbelief. Seal every detention block. An officer looked terrified. We can't. The doors aren't responding. Manual override. Disabled. Emergency lockdown. No response. Another officer shouted. Commander. The prisoners are leaving their cells. Every screen switched to live camera feeds. Hundreds of reinforced doors slowly slid open. No explosions. No force. Every lock simply obeyed a different command. The humans walked out calmly. Not running. Not screaming. Walking. As though they already owned the place. One frightened guard raised his weapon. Stop. Captain Hayes didn't even slow down. You don't want to do that. I said stop. The guard fired. The pulse round struck Hayes directly in the chest. Everyone froze. The smoke cleared. Hayes looked down at the black mark on his armored undersuit. Then looked back at the guard. That was a mistake. Before anyone could react. Brooks moved. 1 second. One punch. The rifle flew across the hallway. The guard crashed into the wall unconscious. The second guard reached for his alarm. Miller caught his wrist. Twisted. The weapon dropped harmlessly onto the floor. 3 seconds. No deaths. No unnecessary violence. Hayes picked up the fallen rifle and handed it back. We're not here to kill prison guards. The terrified alien stared at him. Then, what do you want? Hayes answered without emotion. We're here to stop what's coming. Commander Varric watched the security footage in complete confusion. They're sparing our soldiers. No one answered. Every report became stranger. Humans are avoiding civilian staff. They're ignoring surrendering guards. They're moving toward engineering. No. Another officer corrected. They're moving toward the lower reactor. Varric's eyes widened. The reactor. He suddenly understood. They aren't escaping. They're preparing the station. Far beyond Black Vault. The hidden human reserve fleet exited hyperspace. Hundreds of warships appeared in perfect silence. No broadcasts. No battle cries. Only disciplined formation. At the center of the fleet floated an enormous command carrier. Its captain studied the tactical display. Status. All sleeper networks active. Black Vault infiltration successful. Alliance response. They still believe this is a prison break. The captain slowly smiled. They'll realize the truth soon enough. Begin Phase 2. The fleet accelerated. Not toward Black Vault. Toward the edge of Alliance space. Because Black Vault had never been the real objective. It was only the key. Back inside the prison. Captain Hayes and nearly 400 human soldiers reached an enormous blast door leading deep underground. Commander Varek finally intercepted them with dozens of elite security troops. Weapons aimed. Energy cannons charged. No further. Hayes stopped. For several long seconds. Neither side moved. Finally Varek spoke. You surrendered. Yes. You allowed yourselves to be captured. Yes. Everything since then. Hayes nodded. Exactly as planned. Varek's face turned pale. You used us. Hayes looked directly into his eyes. No, Commander. You used yourselves. You built the strongest fortress in the galaxy. You gathered every experienced human soldier in one place. You protected us. You fed us. You kept every enemy watching the station. While the rest of humanity disappeared. Silence filled the corridor. Then. The floor beneath everyone trembled. Not from inside the station. From outside. A terrified voice echoed through every communication channel. Commander. Hundreds of unknown warships have just entered the system. Another voice interrupted. No. Thousands. The room became completely silent. Commander Varek slowly turned toward the ceiling. His worst fear had come true. Black Vault had never imprisoned humanity. It had hidden humanity. Until the galaxy was no longer ready to face it. Every officer in Black Vault froze. Thousands of unknown warships had just appeared beyond the outer defense perimeter. Commander Varek stared at the tactical display. Red symbols spread across the screen faster than the computer could count them. 1,000. 3,000. 5,000. The number kept rising. The sensor officer's voice shook. Commander. We've never seen a fleet this large. Another officer zoomed in on the leading ships. They're not Alliance. They're not human either. Silence filled the command center. If they belonged to no known civilization. Then who were they? Captain Hayes glanced toward the ceiling. They're early. Commander Varek immediately turned to him. You know who they are. Hayes nodded. Yes. Who? Hayes looked him straight in the eyes. The reason humanity surrendered. The room became silent. For years, the Alliance believed they had defeated humans through superior numbers and technology. Now, they realized something terrifying. Humanity had never been fighting to win. They had been buying time. Far beyond the station. The unknown fleet stopped moving. Every ship was enormous. Each one was several kilometers long. Their black hulls absorbed the light of nearby stars. There were no windows. No visible engines. No communication signals. Only complete silence. Then, every Alliance communication channel suddenly went dead. One cold mechanical voice replaced every frequency. Biological resistance detected. Final harvest has begun. No one understood the message. Except the humans. Brooks quietly whispered. They found us. Captain Hayes nodded. I was hoping we'd get another year. Commander Varek looked completely confused. What is the final harvest? Hayes answered calmly. 200 years ago. The first human exploration fleet disappeared beyond the edge of known space. We believed they were lost. We were wrong. They found something. Or. He paused. Something found them. Images appeared on the tactical display. Entire star systems. Empty. No cities. No stations. No ships. Only dead planets. One after another. Worlds that had once supported billions of lives. Now. Nothing remained. Varek stared in horror. What happened? They were harvested. Hayes answered quietly. The machines don't conquer. They don't negotiate. They erase. The Alliance officers exchanged frightened looks. If you knew they existed, why didn't you warn us? Hayes gave a sad smile. We did. You thought we were trying to scare you. You called our reports propaganda. You believed humanity invented the threat to justify building larger fleets. No one spoke. Because it was true. Every warning had been ignored. Suddenly, a blinding beam of white light shot from one of the enemy ships. It crossed millions of kilometers in an instant. The Alliance defense station guarding the outer system simply vanished. No explosion. No debris. No survivors. 1 second it existed. The next, it was gone. The command center became completely silent. Someone whispered, "My God!" Warning sirens screamed across Black Vault. Outer defense fleet destroyed. Estimated time. The officer looked at the screen in disbelief. 16 minutes. Commander Varek turned toward Hayes. If they're coming for us, why aren't your people escaping? Hayes smiled. Because this station isn't our prison anymore. He looked around the massive fortress. It's our fortress. Deep beneath Black Vault. Massive blast doors slowly opened. Hidden chambers that no Alliance blueprint had ever shown came alive. Rows of advanced weapons emerged from underground hangars. Missile batteries. Rail cannons. Shield generators. Entire defense systems had been secretly built beneath the station decades earlier. Alliance engineers had never discovered them. Because the compartments had always been hidden behind false structural walls. One engineer looked at the scans. Commander. These systems. They've always been here. Varek whispered. Impossible. Hayes answered. Not impossible. Prepared. At that exact moment, the human reserve fleet exited hyperspace. Hundreds of powerful warships appeared between Black Vault and the approaching machine armada. Perfect formation. Perfect discipline. No celebration. No speeches. Only readiness. The Alliance watched in disbelief. Humanity had hidden an entire fleet. Not dozens of ships. Not hundreds of soldiers. An entire civilization's final line of defense. A transmission arrived from the human flagship. Every screen inside Black Vault activated. An older woman wearing a dark admiral's uniform appeared. Her face showed years of war. But not fear. She looked directly at Commander Varek. My name is Admiral Sarah Winters. We have no time for politics. No time for old wars. She took one slow breath. The enemy has arrived. If we fight each other, we all die. If we fight together, we might survive. She looked directly at Captain Hayes. Captain. Open the fortress. Hayes smiled for the first time. With pleasure. He pressed his hand against a hidden scanner beside the giant blast door. A deep mechanical sound echoed throughout Black Vault. One after another. The station transformed. Armor plates shifted. Weapon ports opened. Massive cannons rose from beneath the outer hull. The prison disappeared. In its place stood the single most heavily armed fortress the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Varek stared at the awakening station. Then at Hayes. Then back at the growing enemy fleet. For the first time in his life, he finally understood why every civilization feared humanity. Humans didn't build prisons. They built traps. And today, the true monsters of the galaxy had just flown directly into one. Black Vault no longer looked like a prison. It looked like a war god awakening from a long sleep. Massive armor plates shifted across its surface. Hidden rail cannons rose from beneath the outer hull. Missile silos opened. Shield generators came alive one after another. Blue energy spread across the fortress like a giant wave. The Alliance officers watched in complete disbelief. For decades, they had worked inside the station. They had repaired it, expanded it, defended it. Yet they had never known what truly lay beneath its walls. Commander Varric could only whisper. "We were never its owners." Captain Hayes nodded. "No. You were its caretakers." Far beyond the station, the enemy fleet continued moving forward. Thousands of black ships advanced without changing formation. No fear. No hesitation. Only cold precision. Every second, they came closer. Admiral Sarah Winters studied the tactical display aboard the human flagship. Their speed? Constant. Any communications? None. She nodded slowly. They never negotiate. They never have. A young officer looked nervous. "Admiral. What if we lose?" She looked at every person on the bridge. Then today becomes the last day intelligent life exists in this galaxy. No one spoke again. Across hundreds of Alliance ships, confusion spread. Some captains wanted to retreat. Others wanted to surrender. Many simply froze. They had spent years preparing to fight humans. No one had prepared to fight this. Commander Varric opened every military channel. His voice echoed across the entire fleet. "This is Commander Varric. I know many of you do not trust humanity. I didn't either. But if Captain Hayes is telling the truth..." He looked toward the massive enemy armada. "Our war ends today. Because another one has already begun. For every Alliance ship. For every human ship. Form battle lines. No exceptions. For the first time in history, human and Alliance fleets moved together. The enemy attacked first. Thousands of beams erupted from the darkness. Entire sections of space exploded into brilliant white light. Alliance cruisers disappeared instantly. Human destroyers answered with heavy railgun fire. Missiles crossed the battlefield like burning stars. Black Vault fired its first shot. A magnetic cannon the size of a skyscraper launched a solid tungsten projectile at nearly the speed of light. The shell slammed into the lead enemy ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the black vessel split completely in half. Cheers erupted across every human ship. One enemy destroyed. Thousands remained. The machine fleet finally changed tactics. Smaller attack craft poured from their carriers. Millions of them. They looked like metal insects. Fast. Silent. Deadly. Within seconds they surrounded the battlefield. Human pilots launched to intercept them. Dogfights filled space. Explosions flashed everywhere. No one could count the losses anymore. Inside Black Vault, Captain Hayes led hundreds of soldiers toward the lower reactor. Brooks looked confused. "The battle's outside. Why are we going down?" Hayes answered while running. "Because this isn't their only attack." Almost immediately, the station shook violently. Emergency lights flashed red. A technician shouted over the intercom. "Enemy boarding signatures detected. They're inside." Dozens of black mechanical soldiers emerged from maintenance shafts. Unlike ordinary combat drones, these machines were tall, thin, covered in dark armor. Their glowing red eyes never blinked. Each carried twin energy blades. No words. No warning. They charged. Contact front. Human soldiers opened fire. The narrow hallway exploded with gunfire. Armor-piercing rounds ripped into the leading machines. One collapsed. 3 more took its place. They climbed walls. Jumped across ceilings. Moved with terrifying speed. Brooks emptied an entire magazine into one charging machine. It kept coming. Only after Hayes fired a heavy explosive round into its chest did it finally collapse. The hallway filled with sparks and smoke. "Keep moving," Hayes shouted. "If they reach the reactor, they'll destroy the station from the inside." Outside, the battle became even worse. Human ships fought with incredible discipline. Alliance fleets covered their flanks. For the first time, two former enemies trusted each other with their lives. Commander Varek's flagship took a direct hit. Half the bridge exploded. Smoke filled the room. Warning alarms screamed. An officer shouted, "Shields at 12%. Before Varek could answer, 3 human cruisers jumped directly between his damaged ship and the enemy fleet. They formed a defensive wall. One human captain transmitted only 4 words. "We've got you." Varek stared at the screen. These were the same people he had imprisoned. The same people he had called monsters. And now, they were risking everything to save him. Deep below Black Vault, the fighting became desperate. Machine soldiers continued pouring through the maintenance tunnels. Human defenders slowly gave ground. Bodies of destroyed machines covered the floor. Captain Hayes looked toward the giant reactor door. Only 50 meters remained. Then, the lights suddenly went out. Complete darkness. The only illumination came from burning machinery and glowing red enemy eyes. Brooks whispered, "They're here." Hayes slowly raised his rifle. "No. They've finally sent their commander." Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. Boom. 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 A gigantic shadow emerged from the darkness. It stood nearly 4 meters tall. Its armor was untouched. Its red eyes burned brighter than every other machine. The ordinary soldiers stopped moving. Even they seemed to obey it. Captain Hayes took one slow breath. Then quietly said, "I was hoping we'd never meet again." The giant machine tilted its head. Then, for the first time, it spoke. Its cold mechanical voice echoed through the hallway. "Human Captain Hayes. Your species has delayed extinction long enough. This cycle ends today." Every soldier tightened their grip on their weapons. The final battle had just begun. The corridor fell completely silent. No one fired. No one moved. The giant machine stood at the end of the hallway like a living fortress. It was taller than any human. Its armor looked untouched by time. Its crimson eyes glowed brighter than burning stars. Captain Hayes slowly lowered his rifle. Not because he was afraid. Because he understood exactly what stood before him. Brooks whispered, "You know that thing?" Hayes never looked away. "I've fought it before." Brooks stared at him. "And you survived?" Hayes gave a faint smile. "Barely." The machine took one heavy step forward. The floor shook beneath its weight. Its voice echoed through the corridor. "Captain Daniel Hayes. Last commander of Earth's Outer Defense Fleet. Probability of your victory." It paused. 0.03%. Hayes chuckled. "You machines always did love statistics." The machine answered instantly. "And humans always ignored them." Without warning, it attacked. The machine crossed 30 meters in less than a second. Its massive energy blade cut through the air. Hayes barely rolled aside. The blade sliced through solid steel as if it were paper. The entire hallway exploded with gunfire. Hundreds of human soldiers opened fire. Armor-piercing rounds struck the machine from every direction. Nothing. Not a single bullet penetrated. The commander machine kept walking. Unstoppable. Outside Black Vault, the battle had reached its peak. Thousands of ships burned across the stars. Human vessels fought beside Alliance fleets as one united force. Admiral Sarah Winters watched the tactical display. "Report. Enemy losses, 11%. Our losses. The officer hesitated. 43%. Silence filled the bridge. Every captain knew what those numbers meant. They couldn't win by fighting normally. The enemy had too many ships. Too many machines. Too many resources. Unless humanity used its final weapon. Back inside the fortress, Commander Varek arrived at the reactor level with Alliance reinforcements. For a moment, humans and Alliance soldiers looked at one another. Months earlier, they would have opened fire. Today, they stood shoulder to shoulder. Varek raised his rifle. "Where do you need us?" Hayes smiled. "Welcome to the real war." The giant machine swung again. Its blade struck the reactor's shield. Warning alarms screamed. Brooks shouted, "If that shield fails..." Hayes finished the sentence. "The entire station goes with it." The machine commander looked at them. "Correct. It will eliminate all resistance." Hayes looked toward Varek. "Can you hold the smaller machines?" Varek answered without hesitation. "We'll hold them." Hayes nodded. "Then this one's mine." The two commanders charged at each other. Steel met energy. The impact shook the entire reactor chamber. Hayes used every skill he had learned across decades of war. The machine matched every move. Neither could gain the advantage. Around them, humans and Alliance soldiers fought side by side. No one cared about old enemies anymore. Only survival mattered. Meanwhile, Admiral Winters made the hardest decision of her life. She opened every communication channel. Every human ship. Every Alliance ship. Every surviving pilot. "This is Admiral Winters. Our conventional weapons are no longer enough. There is only one option left." The bridge became silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Operation Phoenix. A plan so dangerous it had never been tested. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Then gave the order. "Begin Phoenix." Across the battlefield, hundreds of damaged human warships suddenly changed course. Instead of retreating, they accelerated directly toward the center of the enemy fleet. Alliance officers stared in disbelief. "What are they doing?" Commander Varek received the transmission. His eyes widened. "They're sacrificing themselves." Every human captain transmitted one final message. Not to their families. Not to history. To every ship still fighting. For humanity. For the Alliance. For the future. The damaged ships overloaded their fusion cores. Seconds later, hundreds of miniature stars were born. The explosions merged into one blinding wave of light. The entire enemy formation disappeared inside the expanding firestorm. For several endless seconds, no one could see anything. Then, the light faded. Nearly half of the machine fleet was gone. The survivors finally stopped advancing. For the first time, they hesitated. Inside Black Vault, the giant machine froze. Its glowing eyes flickered. Hayes immediately understood. Their network. It's disrupted. Now. Every soldier fired everything they had. Rail rifles. Explosive rounds. Heavy plasma cannons. The damaged commander staggered backward. Cracks spread across its armor. Hayes ran forward. Jumped onto the machine's shoulder. Pulled one final explosive charge from his armor. He looked directly into its glowing eyes. "You made one mistake." The machine answered. "Explain." "You thought humans were trying to survive." Hayes armed the explosive. "We were buying time. For everyone else." He slammed the charge into the machine's core. Then jumped. A deafening explosion filled the chamber. The machine commander shattered into thousands of burning fragments. Every smaller machine instantly stopped moving. One by one, they collapsed. The war was over. Hours later, the battlefield was silent. Burning wreckage drifted through space. Thousands had died. Millions would never return home. But the galaxy still existed. Commander Varek stood beside Captain Hayes on the observation deck. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally Varek broke the silence. I spent years believing humanity was the greatest threat in the galaxy. Hayes looked out at the stars. So did most people. Varek nodded slowly. I understand now. You were never the monsters. Hayes smiled. No. We were simply willing to become monsters. So no one else had to. Months later, the Galactic Alliance officially removed every charge against humanity. Black Vault was no longer a prison. It became a memorial. A reminder of the day old enemies became brothers. A reminder that courage is not measured by power, but by what you're willing to sacrifice for those who cannot defend themselves. Across the galaxy, children would one day ask why humans were feared by everyone. Their parents would smile and answer, because when the darkness came, they were the only ones brave. Children would one day ask why humans were feared by everyone. Their parents would smile and answer, because when the darkness came, they were the only ones brave enough to stand in front of it. And from that day forward, no one ever again called humanity monsters. They called them the Guardians of the Galaxy.